Ever wonder what happens when a revolutionary filmmaker invents an entire fictional movie star, sells fake photographs at a fundraiser to finance her film, and accidentally sparks a congressional debate that changed arts funding forever? The Watermelon Woman broke every rule in 1996, and its wild behind-the-scenes story is just as groundbreaking as what made it to the screen. Fact 1. The star never existed. Imagine spending an entire movie searching for a Hollywood actress from the 1930s, interviewing people who remember her, finding photographs of her life, and discovering intimate details about her career, only to learn in the final moments that she never actually existed. That's exactly what happens in The Watermelon Woman. The entire character of Faye Richards, the actress known only as the Watermelon Woman in old film credits, was completely made up by director Cheryl Dunye. There was no real actress by that name, no authentic archival footage, and no genuine historical record. Dunye created this fictional character to represent all the forgotten black actresses from Hollywood's early era whose names were left out of credits or whose stories were never told. The film's protagonist, also named Cheryl and played by Dunye herself, conducts what appears to be legitimate documentary research, tracking down Faye's history through interviews and old photographs. But right before the credits roll, a title card appears on screen with a stunning revelation that reads, "Sometimes you have to create your own history. The Watermelon Woman is fiction." This wasn't a twist ending meant to shock audiences, it was a deliberate artistic statement. Dunye explained that she invented the character because when she researched black lesbian actresses from the 1930s and 40s, she found virtually nothing in film archives. Rather than accept that absence, she decided to fill it with a story that felt true, even if it wasn't factual. The character became a stand-in for Louise Beavers, Hattie McDaniel, Butterfly McQueen, and countless other black women whose full lives and identities were erased by Hollywood's racist systems. Fact 2. 78 fake photos sold as fundraiser. Creating a believable life story for a fictional actress from the 1930s required more than just imagination. It needed tangible proof. Cheryl Dunye collaborated with renowned photographer Zoe Leonard to manufacture an entire photographic archive for Faye Richards, the made-up star at the center of the film. Leonard staged and shot 78 individual photographs, meticulously designed to look like authentic images from different periods of Faye's supposed life. The collection included everything from glamorous Hollywood publicity shots to intimate personal snapshots with friends and lovers, candid backstage moments, and images from her later years. Leonard hired multiple actresses to portray Faye at various ages, styled them in period-appropriate clothing and makeup, and used historically accurate photographic processes to make the images look genuinely old. She even manually aged many of the prints by hand to give them the worn patina of decades-old photographs. Each picture came with detailed, typewritten captions that added biographical information and dates, creating a seemingly authentic documentary record. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some of these completely fake photographs were actually auctioned off before the film was even finished. Dunye and her team sold several prints from the Faye Richards photo archive as a fundraiser to help finance the movie's production. People bought what they knew were fabricated images because they represented something emotionally real, the invisible histories of black queer women that had been systematically excluded from official archives. The entire 78 image collection was later published as a book by ArtSpace in 1997, and Leonard's photographs have since been exhibited in galleries around the world, blurring the line between documentary evidence and artistic creation in a way that perfectly captures the film's central message. Fact 3. Director cast her real mother. One of the most touching elements of The Watermelon Woman comes from a casting choice that brought genuine family intimacy to the screen. Cheryl Dunye cast her actual mother, Irene Dunye, to play the mother of her character in the film. This wasn't just a cameo appearance either. Irene has a memorable scene where she's interviewed by her daughter about old movies and black actresses from the 1930s and 40s. In the scene, Cheryl sits with her mother in what appears to be a cluttered basement, surrounded by boxes and old belongings, asking her about memories of seeing films during that era. Irene tells stories about watching movies as a young woman and recalls seeing the actress who would become known as the Watermelon Woman performing in clubs in Philadelphia. The conversation flows with a natural ease that only comes from real familial connection. There's warmth, humor, and the kind of gentle teasing that happens between mothers and daughters who know each other deeply. At one point in their exchange, Irene describes the atmosphere of the old clubs and mentions there were weirdos there, to which Cheryl laughingly responds that they sound like her type of people. Irene agrees with a knowing smile, saying, "Yes, you would have loved it." This brief moment of recognition between mother and daughter adds layers of authenticity that no professional actress could have replicated. By including her real mother in the film, Dunye was making a statement about the importance of intergenerational memory and how stories get passed down through families. Irene wasn't a trained actress. She was simply being herself, and that genuine presence became one of the film's most treasured elements. The choice also reflected the film's overall DIY aesthetic and community-based approach to filmmaking, where friends and family members often stepped in front of the camera. Fact 4. Photos exhibited at Whitney Biennial. The fake photographs that Zoe Leonard created for the Watermelon Woman were so meticulously crafted and emotionally resonant that they transcended their original purpose as movie props and became recognized as legitimate works of art. In 1997, just 1 year after the film premiered, the entire Faye Richards photo archive was included in the prestigious Whitney Biennial, one of the most important exhibitions of contemporary art in America. This wasn't a small side display tucked away in a corner. The photographs were presented as a significant artwork in their own right, separate from the film. Art critics and museum visitors engaged with the images as both a commentary on archival practices and a meditation on absence and representation in American history. The Whitney exhibition cemented Leonard's reputation as a major contemporary artist, and the archive became one of her most celebrated works. The photographs were later published as a hardcover book by ArtSpace Books in 1997, allowing an even wider audience to experience this invented history. The book presents the images with their typewritten captions intact, maintaining the illusion of a genuine family photo album discovered in someone's attic. What makes this story particularly fascinating is that everyone knew the archive was fake, yet it still carried profound emotional and historical weight. The images depicted scenarios that never literally happened, but they represented truths about Black lesbian existence that had been systematically excluded from official records. Museums and galleries around the world have since exhibited selections from the Faye Richards Photo Archive, and the complete collection is now held in major art institutions. Leonard's photographs have appeared in multiple Whitney biennials over the years, and the work continues to be studied in art history courses as a groundbreaking example of institutional critique and queer world-making through fictional archives. Fact 5. Spike Lee inspired the whole film. The spark that eventually became The Watermelon Woman was lit at a movie theater in Philadelphia during a question-and-answer session that had nothing to do with lesbian cinema or queer identity. In the late 1980s, Cheryl Dunye attended a screening of Spike Lee's groundbreaking film, She's Gotta Have It, his 1986 debut that told the story of a young black woman and her relationships with 3 men. After the screening, Lee participated in a Q&A with the audience, and some viewers began criticizing how he had portrayed the female protagonist, arguing that his depiction of black women wasn't accurate or respectful. Instead of getting defensive, Lee issued a challenge to the crowd. He essentially told the critics that if they didn't like how he represented black women in his films, they should go out and make their own movies. That moment hit Dunye like lightning. She realized he was absolutely right. If she wanted to see black lesbian characters and stories on screen, she couldn't wait for someone else to create them. She would have to do it herself. This realization was particularly powerful because Dunye had been struggling with the same frustration while researching black film history for a class. She kept looking for information about black actresses from early Hollywood and coming up empty, and when she tried to find any mention of black lesbians in film history, the archives offered nothing. Lee's challenge gave her permission to stop waiting for validation from the mainstream film industry and to start creating the representation she needed to see. Years later, when Dunye became a filmmaker and eventually made The Watermelon Woman, she would echo Lee's advice in her own work, demonstrating that marginalized artists must claim the power to tell their own stories rather than waiting for permission from gatekeepers. Fact 6. Invented a new genre called Dunyementary. Cheryl Dunye didn't just make a movie, she invented an entirely new filmmaking approach that blended documentary techniques with fictional narrative in such a unique way that it earned its own name, the Dunymentary. This hybrid style became Dunye's signature method of storytelling, combining elements that traditionally don't mix. Talking head interviews filmed on grainy video, staged fictional scenes shot on film, archival-looking footage that was completely fabricated, and direct address to the camera where Dunye as herself would explain what she was thinking or feeling. The technique creates a deliberately confusing effect where viewers can't always tell what's real and what's performance, which was exactly Dunye's intention. She wanted audiences to question the nature of documentary truth and historical evidence. Dunye explained that she developed what she calls her theory of threes as the foundation of the Dunymentary style. The idea is that if you present information three different ways, viewers will accept it as truth. First, you show someone speaking directly to camera in a talking head interview. Second, you provide a title card with written information that viewers can read. Third, you show a dramatized scene acting out what was just described. This triple reinforcement makes even completely fictional events feel documented and real. The Dunymentary approach wasn't just an artistic choice, it was born from practical necessity. As a young filmmaker with limited resources, Dunye used video because it was cheaper than film, and she cast friends and community members because she couldn't afford professional actors. But she transformed these limitations into a radical aesthetic that challenged how stories about marginalized communities could be told. The term Dunymentary, TE, has since been adopted by film scholars and critics to describe not just her work, but a whole approach to filmmaking that prioritizes emotional and political truth over strict factual accuracy. Fact 7. Congressional uproar over $31,500. Grant. The Watermelon Woman sparked one of the most bizarre political controversies of the 1990s when it became a target in America's so-called culture wars. The film received a grant of $31,500 from the National Endowment for the Arts, which represented roughly 1/10 of its total $300,000 budget. This federal funding became a lightning rod for conservative outrage after a writer for the Washington Times published an article in June of 1996 that questioned whether taxpayer money should support the film. The article quoted a positive review from Philadelphia City Paper that had described a love scene between the two main characters as the hottest dyke sex scene ever recorded on celluloid. Republican Representative Peter Hoekstra from Michigan read this review and was scandalized. During a House debate on an appropriations bill, Hoekstra stood on the floor of Congress and denounced The Watermelon Woman, calling it possibly pornographic and demanding that the NEA be punished for funding it. He proposed an amendment that was almost comically specific. He wanted to cut exactly $31,500 from the NEA's budget, the precise amount that had been granted to Dunye's film. Hoekstra argued that the movie included what he called the most graphic lesbian sex scene ever filmed, and represented a serious misuse of taxpayer funds for material he deemed obscene. He cited the film as evidence that public money was being used to produce and distribute offensive and possibly illegal content. Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas defended the funding, arguing that defunding specific grants based on content threatened artistic freedom and First Amendment rights. The debate became national news, with conservative commentators using the film as an example of liberal excess, while arts advocates rallied to defend it. Fact 8. Changed NEA funding forever. The controversy surrounding The Watermelon Woman didn't just create headlines in congressional theater, it fundamentally altered how the National Endowment for the Arts operates and distributes grants to this day. Before this scandal, the NEA commonly awarded what were called broad funding grants, essentially giving money to artists with general support for their creative work without micromanaging every specific project. This allowed artists to maintain creative independence and explore challenging or controversial subjects without prior approval from government bureaucrats. But the backlash against The Watermelon Woman, combined with other similar controversies during the 1990s involving artists like Karen Finley and Robert Mapplethorpe, created enormous political pressure on the NEA to prove it wasn't funding offensive content. Although Representative Hoekstra's specific amendment to cut $31,500 from the budget didn't ultimately pass, the broader effect was significant. The NEA responded to the criticism by completely restructuring its grant system, moving away from broad funding toward what are called project-specific awards. Under this new system, artists had to submit detailed proposals for specific projects that would be individually evaluated and approved before any money was distributed. This change gave the NEA more control over what it funded and provided political cover when critics attacked particular artworks. They could say the approval process included careful review. However, many artists and arts advocates argued that this restructuring had a chilling effect on creative freedom. When artists know that government reviewers will scrutinize their proposals for potentially controversial content, they may self-censor or avoid risky subjects altogether. The project-specific system also created more bureaucratic hurdles and paperwork, making it harder for emerging artists and small organizations to access funding. Nearly 3 decades later, the NEA still operates under this modified structure, a lasting legacy of the culture wars that targeted films like The Watermelon Woman. Fact 9. Director's real girlfriend played her lover's lover. The Watermelon Woman contains layers of romantic entanglement both on screen and behind the scenes that blur the line between fiction and reality in fascinating ways. In the film, the character Cheryl, played by director Cheryl Dunye, is making a documentary about the fictional actress Faye Richards and discovers that Faye had a complicated relationship with Martha Page, a white female film director who cast her in degrading mammy roles during the 1930s. Meanwhile, the character Cheryl is also navigating her own interracial relationship with Diana, a white woman she meets at the video store where she works. Now here's where it gets deliciously meta. The role of Martha Page, the white director who was Faye's lover within the film, was played by Alexandra Juhasz, who in real life was not only one of the film's producers, but also Cheryl Dunye's actual girlfriend at the time. So Dunye's real-life partner portrayed the white director who was the romantic partner of the fictional historical character that Dunye's fictional character was researching, while that fictional character was simultaneously involved with a different white woman played by another actress. This created a kind of Hall of Mirrors effect where a personal biography, historical fiction, and narrative storytelling all folded into each other. The casting choice wasn't accidental or just convenient. It was a deliberate artistic decision that added depth to the film's exploration of interracial lesbian relationships and power dynamics. By having her actual white girlfriend play a white woman who exploited her black actress lover professionally, even while loving her personally, Dunye was interrogating her own real-life relationship dynamics through the safety of historical fiction. The film openly questions whether white partners can truly understand or support their black partners, a theme that resonated on multiple levels given who was actually involved in the production. Fact 10. Only female director on Sundance Channel. That month, when The Watermelon Woman finally made it to television after its festival run and theatrical release, it aired on the Sundance Channel on August 12, 1998. The Sundance Channel, launched just 3 years earlier, was meant to showcase independent cinema and give a platform to voices outside the Hollywood mainstream. But here's the stunning part. During the entire month that The Watermelon Woman was broadcast, Cheryl Dunye was the only female director whose work was featured on the channel. Think about that for a moment. A cable network dedicated to independent film, which theoretically should be more progressive and inclusive than major studios, couldn't manage to showcase more than one woman director in a 30-day period. This wasn't 1958 or even 1978, it was 1998, just a couple of decades ago. The film was presented as part of a series called Representing Soul, which focused on African American cinema. But even within that context, celebrating black filmmakers, Dunye stood alone as the month's sole female voice. This statistic became particularly ironic given that The Watermelon Woman is itself about erasure and invisibility, about how black women's contributions to cinema have been systematically ignored and forgotten by film history. Here was a film critiquing those exact dynamics being broadcast during a month that perfectly illustrated the problem it was addressing. Dunye's isolation as the only woman director that month on what was supposed to be a cutting-edge independent film channel demonstrated how deeply entrenched gender inequality remained in the film industry, even in spaces that claimed to be alternative or progressive. The situation highlighted that making one groundbreaking film by and about Black lesbians didn't magically open doors for other women filmmakers. Instead, it often resulted in tokenization, where one woman was allowed through while the door remained closed to others. Fact 11. Hilariously named Fake Archive, CLIT. The Watermelon Woman includes one of cinema's most deliberately provocative and cheeky jokes embedded right into its narrative structure. When Cheryl is researching the life of Faye Richards, she visits a community archive specifically dedicated to preserving lesbian history. The name of this archive, the Center for Lesbian Information and Technology, conveniently abbreviated to CLIT. The acronym is displayed prominently on screen, and the film treats it with complete straight-faced seriousness, never acknowledging the obvious anatomical reference. The scene features Sarah Schulman, a prominent lesbian novelist and activist, playing herself as a frazzled archivist, rummaging through disorganized boxes of materials while trying to help Cheryl find information about Faye. Schulman's character complains about the archive's chaotic filing system while surrounded by piles of documents, creating a humorous contrast between the archive's lofty mission and its messy reality. The CLIT joke works on multiple levels. On the surface, it's simply funny, the kind of irreverent humor that queer communities have always used to reclaim language and make fun of heteronormative discomfort with lesbian sexuality. But it's also a genuine reference to real community archives that existed during this period, like the Lesbian Herstory archives in New York, which Dunye actually visited during her research for the film. These grassroots organizations, often run by volunteers with limited funding and no formal archival training, were doing crucial work to preserve LGBTQ history that mainstream institutions ignored. By giving the fictional archive such an outrageous name, Dunye highlighted the playful, unapologetic spirit of these real-world spaces while also gently mocking the tendency of activist organizations to create tortured acronyms. The joke reflected the film's overall tone, politically serious but never self-important, deeply committed to its message but always willing to laugh at itself. Fact 12. Go Fish star played love interest. The casting of Guinevere Turner as Diana, the white love interest in The Watermelon Woman, created a powerful connection between two landmark films of new queer cinema that came out just 2 years apart. Turner had co-written, co-produced, and starred in Go Fish, a 1994 black and white indie film about a group of lesbian friends in Chicago that became a surprise hit and one of the defining works of the queer film movement in the 90s. Go Fish was made for virtually nothing, shot on a shoestring budget, and distributed by independent companies. Yet it captured something authentic about lesbian life and community that resonated with audiences who had never seen themselves represented on screen before. The film made Turner a recognizable figure in queer cinema circles and proved that there was an audience hungry for stories about lesbian relationships that weren't tragic or exploitative. When Dunye cast Turner in The Watermelon Woman just 2 years later, she was deliberately linking her film to that lineage and acknowledging the groundwork that Go Fish had laid. Turner's presence would have been immediately recognizable to the exact audience most likely to see The Watermelon Woman, creating an intertextual dialogue between the two films. Both movies were low-budget independent productions made by and for queer audiences. Both featured non-professional actors alongside their leads, and both used their modest resources to tell stories that Hollywood had no interest in funding. But while Go Fish focused primarily on white lesbian communities, The Watermelon Woman centered black lesbian experience and explicitly addressed the racial dynamics that Go Fish had largely avoided. Turner's character Diana embodies some of those tensions. She's well-meaning and genuinely attracted to black women, but she's also politically tone-deaf and doesn't fully grasp how her whiteness affects her relationships, a complexity that the film explores with humor and honesty. Fact 13. Museum of Modern Art acquired it in 2016. 20 years after The Watermelon Woman premiered, one of the world's most prestigious art institutions officially recognized its significance by adding it to their permanent collection. In 2016, the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, known universally as MoMA, acquired a print of the film for its legendary film archive. This might not sound dramatic, but it represented a major milestone in the film's journey from controversial independent production to canonical artwork. MoMA's film collection is notoriously selective, including only works that curators believe have made lasting contributions to cinema as an art form. Getting into MoMA means being placed alongside films by Eisenstein, Wells, Kubrick, and other titans of film history. It means your work is considered essential to understanding how cinema has evolved as a medium. For a scrappy indie film made for $300,000, shot partly on video with non-professional actors, that had been attacked in Congress as possibly pornographic just 2 decades earlier, this was a remarkable validation. The acquisition meant that film scholars, students, and researchers could access The Watermelon Woman through MoMA's Study Center, ensuring that future generations would be able to see and learn from Dunye's work. It also meant that the museum's curators would program the film in special screenings and retrospectives, introducing it to new audiences who might not have encountered it otherwise. MoMA's decision to add The Watermelon Woman to its collection reflected a broader shift in how museums and academic institutions were starting to take queer cinema and Black independent film seriously as subjects worthy of preservation and study. The film that had once been denounced as a waste of taxpayer money was now being protected and celebrated by one of the world's most important cultural institutions as an artwork of enduring value. Fact 14. Won Teddy Award at Berlin, The Watermelon Woman had its world premiere at the Berlin International Film Festival in February of 1996, one of the most prestigious and important film festivals in the world. Berlin was where the film first encountered an international audience, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. The festival awarded The Watermelon Woman the Teddy Award for Best Feature Film, a prize specifically dedicated to recognizing outstanding LGBTQ cinema from around the world. The Teddy Award had only been established a decade earlier in 1987, making it one of the first major film festival prizes to explicitly honor queer filmmaking. Winning this award at such a major festival gave The Watermelon Woman instant credibility and helped launch Dunye's career as a filmmaker. But here's the delightful detail. In those early years, the actual prize given to winners was a literal teddy bear, not a fancy glass sculpture or metal trophy, just a stuffed teddy bear. Dunye received her teddy bear on stage at the award ceremony in Berlin, a charmingly unpretentious prize for such a groundbreaking film. In an interview years later, Dunye admitted that she no longer has that original teddy bear because it got lost somewhere along the way after she had children, and their toys got mixed up with her belongings. She joked that the festival should send her a replacement, maybe one of the more elegant glass trophies that the Teddy Award later adopted. The Berlin premiere and Teddy Award victory were crucial moments for the film because they happened before the movie had been released in the United States or become embroiled in congressional controversy. It meant that the film first encountered audiences who responded to it purely as cinema, without the political baggage that would soon surround it in America. Fact 15. National Film Registry added it 25 years later. In December of 2021, exactly 25 years after The Watermelon Woman premiered in Berlin, the Library of Congress announced that the film had been selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. This honor is one of the highest recognitions any film can receive in America. Each year, the Librarian of Congress chooses 25 films that are deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and worthy of permanent preservation for future generations. The registry includes everything from Hollywood blockbusters and silent-era classics to documentaries, experimental works, and home movies, any film that helps tell the story of American culture and cinema. Getting selected means your film will be carefully preserved using the best archival techniques available, ensuring that it survives in pristine condition even as the original prints and formats become obsolete. The 2021 selection was particularly notable for being one of the most diverse groups of films ever added to the registry, including works by women directors, filmmakers of color, and documentarians whose voices had historically been excluded from the canon. The Library of Congress specifically highlighted The Watermelon Woman as a landmark in queer cinema and an important document of Black lesbian experience in the 90s. The announcement described Dunye as one of the most important African-American, queer, and lesbian directors, and noted that the film explored themes of erasure and identity that remained urgently relevant decades later. The selection carried extra significance because the same institution that had once been too expensive for Dunye to access when she was researching black actresses for her film, a fact she incorporated into the movie itself, was now declaring her work essential to American cultural heritage and committing to preserve it forever.